Money can buy a lot of things, but it can't always buy peace of mind, and it definitely can't stop a global pandemic from crashing your wedding plans. When Jennifer Gates, daughter of the world-famous Microsoft founder Bill Gates, decided to marry her longtime partner, a champion equestrian from Egypt, everything seemed to be lining up perfectly. A beautiful venue, a Vera Wang gown, a private performance from one of the biggest bands in the world, and a guest list packed with some of the most recognizable names on the planet. But behind the glitz and glamour, this couple almost didn't make it down the aisle at all. In this video, we're breaking down exactly how Jennifer Gates met her husband, who he really is, what almost derailed their big day, and how their lives look today. Stick around until the end, because the reason their wedding nearly fell apart might surprise you. Most people assume that billionaires' children live in some separate universe, meeting partners through business deals or exclusive society events. But Jennifer Gates' love story actually started the same way a lot of ordinary romances do, through a shared hobby. Jennifer had been riding horses since she was a small child, and by the time she reached her teenage years, she was already competing in serious equestrian circuits. It was through this world of show jumping and dressage that she crossed paths with a rising star in the sport, a young man who had spent years building a name for himself on the international show jumping circuit. The two didn't meet at a gala or a fundraiser. They met at a horse show, surrounded by the noise of hooves hitting dirt and the tension of competition. Anyone who has spent time around equestrian sports knows that the community is tight-knit. Riders travel from event to event together, they share trainers, they share stables, and they inevitably end up sharing stories. For Jennifer and her future husband, that shared world became the foundation of their entire relationship. They didn't have to explain to each other why waking up at 5 in the morning to muck out a stall was worth it, or why a single bad round could ruin an entire week. They already understood. Over time, casual conversation turned into something more serious. They began showing up to the same competitions, not just as fellow riders, but as a couple cheering each other on from the sidelines. Friends close to the pair have described their bond as one built on mutual respect first, romance second. In a sport where the same 50 or so top competitors see each other constantly across a season, it wasn't long before their relationship became an open secret in equestrian circles, long before it became public knowledge to the rest of the world. To understand why this wedding mattered so much, it helps to know who these two people actually are. Jennifer Catherine Gates was born in the mid-1990s in the Pacific Northwest, the eldest of 3 children, in one of the most famous families in modern history. Growing up as a Gates meant growing up under a level of scrutiny most people can't imagine, but her parents were reportedly deliberate about keeping her grounded. Chores, part-time jobs, and a heavy emphasis on education were all part of her upbringing, despite the family's extraordinary wealth. Jennifer eventually enrolled at Stanford University, one of the most competitive schools in the country, where she studied human biology. She didn't stop riding during her college years either, somehow balancing a demanding academic course load with international competition schedules. After graduating, she made the decision to pursue medicine, eventually attending medical school and completing a pediatric residency. It's a path that mirrors her parents' emphasis on giving back, and it puts her on track for a career that has nothing to do with inherited wealth and everything to do with personal achievement. Along the way, she has also stayed active in philanthropic work tied to global health and education, causes that have long been central to her family's foundation. Her husband comes from an entirely different background, though one that also involves considerable privilege. Born in the early 1990s in the United States to an Egyptian family, he spent much of his childhood in the Middle East before eventually returning to the U.S. His parents built a successful architecture and design firm, giving him a comfortable upbringing, but it was on horseback that he truly made his mark. He began riding as a young boy in the Gulf region, and quickly showed a natural talent that set him apart. By his teenage years, he was already competing at a high level, and he would go on to represent Egypt at major international show jumping events, including appearances on the Olympic stage. Like his future wife, he also attended Stanford, studying economics and management science. It's a detail that gets overlooked easily, but it's part of what made their connection so natural. Two people from vastly different backgrounds, an American tech dynasty and an Egyptian business family, ended up on the same elite university campus and the same competitive riding circuits, all while quietly building the foundation for a life together. Beyond competition, He has also been involved in charitable initiatives focused on education, and in recent years, he has poured energy into a technology venture aimed at modernizing how equestrian sports track performance data, an idea that grew directly out of his frustration with how outdated the sport's statistics and analytics felt compared to mainstream sports like basketball or soccer. By the time the couple had been together for several years, speculation about an eventual engagement was already swirling among friends and equestrian insiders. The actual proposal came during a ski trip, a setting that fit the low-key, adventure-oriented nature of their relationship far better than a flashy restaurant or a red carpet event would have. Photos shared afterwards showed an emotional Jennifer, visibly caught off guard, embracing her partner in the snow with a striking ring on her finger. The engagement announcement spread quickly, not just because of the Gates family name, but because the story itself had genuine romantic appeal. Here was a young woman who could have had any kind of extravagant, made-for-tabloids proposal, and instead she got engaged on a mountainside, surrounded by nothing but snow and the person she loved. Both of them shared heartfelt posts on social media in the days that followed, expressing gratitude and excitement for the future. It set the tone for what people expected to be a fairy tale wedding. What almost nobody anticipated was just how complicated planning that wedding would actually become. Once the engagement became public, media outlets couldn't stop speculating about what a Gates family wedding would actually look like. The couple settled on Jennifer's own property in Westchester County, New York, a sprawling horse farm that had been gifted to her by her parents not long after she finished her undergraduate studies. It was a fitting choice. The venue wasn't just impressive real estate, it was a working equestrian facility, a place that reflected exactly what had brought the couple together in the first place. Preparation for the big day involved months of construction and design work, including a custom-built pavilion with floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking the estate. Reports at the time estimated the overall cost of the celebration reached well into the seven figures, a number that reflected not just the scale of the event, but the caliber of vendors involved. The bride wore a custom gown reportedly featuring intricate hand-applied lace detailing, with a second gown for the reception portion of the evening. Culinary duties were handled by a celebrity chef, and a well-known international band was brought in to perform for guests, turning what could have been a private family affair into one of the most talked-about entertainment events of the year. In the weeks leading up to the ceremony, the celebrations extended well beyond the wedding day itself. The bride's mother hosted an intimate bridal shower at the family's lakeside property in Washington state, a warm, garden-style gathering full of pastel decor and heartfelt toasts. Not long after, friends of the bride organized a bachelorette getaway at a luxury resort in Santa Barbara, complete with beachside relaxation and plenty of laughter. Every part of the pre-wedding season seemed to point toward a flawless celebration. But behind the scenes, a very real threat was quietly working against them. Here's the part of the story most people don't know. The wedding took place in October 2021. Right in the middle of one of the most uncertain periods the world has seen in decades, the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. While the Gates family certainly had the resources to pull off almost any event imaginable, no amount of money could make a global health crisis disappear. Public health restrictions were shifting constantly throughout 2021, with new guidance on gatherings, travel, and safety protocols changing from month to month, sometimes week to week. For a wedding of this scale, involving guests flying in from multiple countries, the uncertainty was enormous. There were serious conversations about whether the event could happen at all in its planned form. Large in-person gatherings were still viewed with caution in many parts of the country, and the idea of hosting hundreds of guests, including high-profile figures who would draw even more attention, carried real risk, both from a health standpoint and a public relations standpoint. Reports at the time suggested the couple went back and forth for weeks on how to move forward, weighing whether to postpone entirely, scale the event down dramatically, or find a way to proceed safely. In the end, they chose a middle path. Rather than canceling outright or delaying their plans indefinitely, the couple implemented strict health protocols to make the day possible. Every guest was required to show proof of vaccination before being allowed onto the property. Hand sanitizing stations were set up throughout the venue, social distancing measures were built into the seating arrangements, and face coverings were made available for anyone who wanted them. It wasn't the wedding either of them had probably imagined years earlier when they first started falling in love on the show jumping circuit, but it was a wedding that could actually happen safely without putting their guests at unnecessary risk. It's worth pausing on this for a moment. This wasn't a couple hiding from a reality that everyone else was facing. Despite having access to virtually unlimited resources, they were dealing with the exact same uncertainty and anxiety that regular couples around the world experienced during that stretch of the pandemic. Weddings everywhere were being postponed, downsized, or reimagined on the fly, and this one, despite its scale and visibility, was no exception. When the wedding weekend finally arrived, all of that careful planning paid off. The ceremony itself took place outdoors on this estate, with the newly built glass pavilion serving as the backdrop for the reception that followed. Guests moved from the ceremony space into a beautifully decorated tent, where soft lighting, floral centerpieces, and string lights created a warm, romantic atmosphere as the sun went down over the property. The evening included heartfelt speeches from both families, with the groom's father speaking about the importance of family unity and love, and the bride's father speaking with visible pride about watching his daughter start this new chapter of her life. The couple shared a first dance that guests would later describe as one of the most touching moments of the night, and the celebration carried on with a live band, a photo booth that had guests cracking jokes late into the evening, and a reception meal that reportedly emphasized fresh, locally sourced ingredients. Despite all the challenges leading up to it, by every account the wedding came together as a genuinely joyful, close-knit celebration, one that balanced luxury with an underlying sense of intimacy. Guests included close friends from both of their college years, extended family members, and a number of familiar faces from the worlds of business and entertainment, though the couple reportedly asked that the guest list remain relatively private out of respect for the personal nature of the day. Marriage didn't slow either of them down. If anything, it gave them a stronger foundation to keep building the lives they'd already been working toward individually. Jennifer continued pursuing her medical career, balancing the demands of residency training with married life, something she has openly acknowledged as a constant juggling act. Her husband kept competing at the top levels of international show jumping, while also dedicating serious time and energy to the technology company he had co-founded during the pandemic, an app built specifically to bring modern performance analytics to the equestrian world, something the sport had lacked for years compared to more mainstream competitive sports. In late 2022, the couple announced they were expecting their first child, sharing the news with a warm, understated Instagram post timed around the Thanksgiving holiday. Their daughter arrived in the months that followed, and the couple has been fairly open about sharing glimpses of parenthood on social media ever since, from first birthday celebrations to candid moments of family life at home. Not long after, they announced they were expecting a second child, continuing to build the family life they'd started dreaming about back when they were just two riders bonding over a shared love of horses. Through it all, both of them have remained committed to philanthropic work. Jennifer has continued to be involved with initiatives tied to her family's Global Health and Education Foundation, while her husband has used his own platform to support causes centered on education and opportunity, particularly within Egyptian and Middle Eastern communities. Neither of them has stepped away from the equestrian world that brought them together in the first place either. They still attend competitions together, still spend time caring for horses on their property, and still treat that shared passion as one of the central pillars of their relationship. At the end of the day, what makes this story compelling isn't the size of the wedding budget or the fame of the families involved. It's the fact that, underneath all of that, this was a relationship built the same way countless others are, two people who found common ground in something they both genuinely loved, who supported each other through years of competition before either of them became a public figure in their own right, and who faced a real, unpredictable crisis right before the biggest day of their lives. Wealth didn't make the pandemic disappear, and it didn't guarantee their wedding would happen the way they'd originally planned. What it did was give them the flexibility to adapt, to prioritize safety without giving up on the celebration entirely, and to build a life together that, by most accounts, still looks genuinely happy years later. What do you think about Jennifer Gates and her husband's relationship? Does a love story like this change the way you see families like the Gateses, or does it just prove that even with unlimited resources, life still throws curveballs at everyone? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.